I invite you to open your Bibles and join me in Acts chapter 2 this morning. We have been the last couple of weeks, and then today we're finishing up this little mini-series on missions. We talked about accepting the responsibility that God has given us to carry on the mission and make disciples of all nations. We talked about last week the power, turning on that power, where it comes from. The Holy Spirit who resides in us, who dwells in us, gives us that power. We don't do it on our own, but we do it with the full support of and full power of the Holy Spirit. Today I'd like to talk with you about reading the map and visualizing the goal. Have you ever tried to take a trip and you didn't have a map, you didn't really know where you were going? Nowadays we use GPS, either on our phones or they have the GPS sometimes even built into the cars. But I remember growing up and taking trips, and my dad would go to AAA and he would get what they call a triptych, and it was just a flip book, a map with turn-by-turn directions where you're going. And so you would just tell AAA all the different places you were going to go in the order in which you wanted to go, and they would put together this triptych, this map, turn-by-turn directions of where you wanted to go. The truth is, it's not a very smart idea to head off on a trip unless you know where you're going. You need to know the direction. You need to know how to get there. Maybe you like to put together puzzles. You ever try to put together a really large jigsaw puzzle? I know that my grandmother and my mother both enjoy putting together puzzles. The secret, of course, if you're going to put together, especially one of those 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzles, it's a good idea to look at the picture before you begin, so that you can visualize exactly what it is you're trying to put together. I think in the same way, we need to visualize the goal of where we're going as a church. It's good to have some direction. It's good to have some idea of where you want to get to and be able to visualize that goal. We may not have all the details worked out, but if we can have a direction where we're going and visualize what it should look like, what it should be, we need to have the correct picture, the biblical picture, because I think there's a lot of wrong pictures. There's a lot of wrong images, a lot of wrong ideas floating around out there about what the church should be like, what the church should be doing, and how the church should be operating. We need to have an accurate picture, a biblical picture of what it should be. We're just really a couple of weeks from the start of college basketball season, and we're right in the heart of college basketball country here in Durham, North Carolina. And so I thought I'd share with you a illustration. And I'd like for you to imagine with me 4 basketball teams. And you are watching these 4 basketball teams, and you are reporting on these 4 basketball teams. Team number 1. The team can be seen huddling together there on the sideline, kind of talking about the strategy of the game and what needs to take place and what needs to happen and all of that. The coach is standing there in the middle of the team, and he's kind of giving them a little bit of a pep talk. And suddenly, there's just this great cheer, and the coach runs out onto the court, leaving the players behind. Well, of course, you, as the reporter, you walk up to one of the players and ask him, what's going on? Why is the coach out on the court? Why are the players sitting on the sidelines? And one of the players says, well, he's going to play. You say, all by himself? The player explains, well, sure, why not? He's the most experienced. He's had a lot more training than the rest of us. That's what they pay him for. He's going to play. And, it sounds crazy, but I think too often the same is said of churches. God has called all of us to serve. all of us to meet one another's needs, all of us to make disciples, all of us to do the work of the ministry. And God has given pastors and leaders to each church, but their primary role is to equip the church. Never is the pastor supposed to be doing all of the work. Never is any leader within the church supposed to be doing all of the work. But too often we find that to be the case. Team number 2. This team realizes that they all have to be players. They all have to be out on the court, involved in the game. So they're on the court. And they're kind of huddled together out on the court. And they just stand there. The horn sounds to signal the start of the game, but the team just stays there in that huddle. One of the players yells back to the sidelines, "Hey coach, this is the greatest team meeting, team huddle I've ever been in. What a great group of guys. What wonderful fellowship. Some of these guys are amazing students of the playbook. It makes me feel really good to be a part of this great team." Again, it sounds crazy, doesn't it? And so you holler back to the player, "Why don't you get out there on the court and play?" And he says, "Well, why should we play? We want bigger and better team meetings and team huddles. Besides, this way nobody gets hurt, right? Nobody gets tired. It's safe, it's comfortable. It makes us feel good." Sounds crazy, but it happens in churches. We meet for worship on Sunday mornings. We have Bible studies during the week. We have great discussions about how the church should be, what it should look like, and how we should live and minister, but we never actually get to carrying it out. Team number 3. This team brings every player out onto the court, but instead of lining up against the other team, they just kind of break into small groups. 2 or 3 over here, 2 or 3 over there. And before long, there's arguments within those groups. Soon they start to shove one another. A couple of them actually get into an all-out fight. You run out onto the court. Again, you ask, what's wrong? What is going on here? The player, one of them, walking off the court in disgust, explains that bunch of troublemakers, they can never agree on anything. Those 2 over there, they're arguing about what color the uniform should be. And you see those 2 over there? They're arguing over the right way to set up on the court. And I'm just quitting because I know that I can shoot a lot better than that other guy, but they won't give me the ball. Crazy, right? It's crazy to think about this happening on a basketball team, but it happens all too often in churches. Everyone has an opinion, and everyone is more concerned about making their opinion heard than working together to get the job done. Team number 4. They're on their way to the championship game. They're playing together. Each one is carrying out their own assignment. And soon they score one basket after another, after another. Afterwards, in the locker room, they're exhausted, but they're happy and excited because they've won the game. They've done their job. They've succeeded. Some of you may say, you know, Pastor, we're just a small church. We have primarily older folks in the church. What can we do? We need more people. We need more resources. We need younger people so that we can be more effective. Let me share with you a story of a church in Florida. I'm very familiar with the church. They've been around for about 60 years. For the last probably 4 years or so, their average attendance has only been about 20 to 25 people. Finances are tight. Sometimes they struggle to get enough people to do the things they want to do. So just a few weeks ago, they decided that they were going to have what they call Friend Day. We're going to encourage everybody to bring a friend to church. So they printed up little invitations, told people everywhere you go, hand out invitations, invite someone to come with you. Go to the bank, invite somebody. Go to the post office, invite somebody. You go to your doctor's office, invite somebody. At work, at school, at play, wherever you are, take the invitations, invite someone to come with you. So they did. Invitations went out all over the town. Just last week was the day of their big event. They had over 60 people in attendance last Sunday. They nearly tripled the size of their average attendance, all because they took the invitations and invited someone to come with them to church. Let's stop making the excuse that we're a small church. Anybody, regardless of your age, can invite someone to come to church. When was the last time you did that? Let me share with you another story. The first church that I served in, just out of college, they had a gentleman in that church. He was older. He was in his 70s. He was at the church probably more often than I was at the church. He was always there. At least it seemed that way anyway. His wife was the secretary, and he would come into the office when she came in. He and I would sit and chat for a while. He would help her fold the bulletins and put the inserts in. And when he wasn't doing that, he would go walk around the church, make sure everything was as it should be, clean things up if needed to be, put things away that needed to be. He'd walk around the church property, pick up trash. He cut the grass every week, sometimes twice a week in the summer, especially in South Florida. Here's two things that stood out to me. He did other things in the church as well, served as the church treasurer, helped out with the sound and other things. Two things that stood out to me about this gentleman. He never complained. I never once heard him say to me, "Pastor, I just wish someone else would come by and help pick up the trash. Pastor, if other people would just put things away, it would make it a lot easier and I wouldn't have to do it. Pastor, I wish someone else would volunteer to cut the grass every now and then." He never once complained that others weren't doing the jobs he was doing. Nobody asked him to cut the grass every week. He just did it. Nobody asked him to come to the church every day of the week to make sure things were straightened up, to make sure trash was put away, picked up, things were put away. Nobody asked him to do those things. He loved the church. He loved serving. He just did it. Another thing that stood out to me. We were a small church. And again, we had our fair share of older folks in the church. He never said, "Pastor, we just need more younger people. You know, Pastor, if we had some younger folks doing some of these jobs, they would get it done a lot quicker and a lot easier." Never once did I hear him say that.